In this video, we're going to take a look at a step-by-step approach to creating authentic-looking digital watercolour. There's so many ways to approach this, which I think can sometimes be overwhelming, so the idea is to give you guys one clear workflow loop that will not only work on the most minimalistic paintings you might do, but would also hold up on extremely complex pieces too. These steps can work with any watercolour brush sets out there, but we're working with our own Wicked Watercolour pack here. Link below if you'd like to take a look at it. Before we jump into the step-by-step flow, I think it makes sense to have a quick look at what actually makes a watercolour. While some of the things we're highlighting here aren't exclusive to watercolours, we believe when you start to mix all of these ingredients together, you'll really start to see something more genuine spring to life. Wet edges. The clue is in the name. Hard wet edges are one of the defining characteristics of watercolour, whether they come from digital brush techniques or pressure or ready-made stamps, whatever. Paper textures. This is one of the most important elements to the painting as well. While a lot of our brushes do already have some texture in them, an overall paper texture unifies everything and affects all the paint underneath to help it make it look like it was all painted on the same piece of paper. Imperfections are also a hallmark of painting on paper. Leave a few tiny gaps when applying the paint. Similarly, not painting perfectly inside or outside the lines is a great way to add a little bit of realism. Smudging is another trait of the media. You can paint and smudge with our brushes in a single stroke, or for even more control, use dedicated smudging brushes to blend the paint or create more imperfections. Stamps and splatters, accidental drops and splatters, as well as intentional ones, makes watercolour feel more alive. Similarly, mimicking real-world tricks like using salt or alcohol can help sell the look, as well as adding some unique character to a piece. Finally, using washes is another hallmark and fun part of traditional or digital watercolour. The random aspect of these also helps make the pieces look more realistic as well as adding character. We're going to show a full watercolour painting of a fox in the next video, but for now let's have a look at our rainbow girl to see one step-by-step workflow approach. Step 1 is to have your sketch finalised. While it can be tempting to sprint through this in order to get down to painting, I strongly recommend that you don't. Solve any problems you might have now, otherwise your illustration could start to fall apart. Adding detail is a step that can be done at several points, but we like to take advantage of working in digital and being able to reorder or recolour layers whenever we want, so we nearly always add in our main detail lines at this stage. Next up is the base paint stage. This is where we use some simple brushes to lay down our base colours throughout. One key point is to try to cover areas with colour in a single stroke. Using our Wicked Watercolour pack makes it super simple, as you're able to get hard edges, wet edges, soften them out, or even smudge more aggressively all in a single stroke, which makes everything feel very painterly and organic and quick. Here's 2 big tips for an authentic touch. Leave gaps in the paint where the paper will show through, like on the girl's forehead, and also don't paint perfectly within your detail lines. Go over some of the edges and stop short of others. Next, we will usually add 1 or more overpaint layers. These are like a second coat of paint to help firm up the colours or to bring out more saturation or even just density of paint. This can also be a nice way to add some subtle shadows or simple darkening to areas, which will give your illustration more depth and dimension. This can be done with the same brush and even the same colour due to how watercolour paint will build up, but it's also nice to switch it up for something with a little more texture in it too at this stage. Now we're in the effects and finishing touches stage. One optional step to add more authenticity is to use stamps, which are taken from scans of genuine traditional watercolour. You don't have to worry about technique with these, you just stamp them on the page, reposition them exactly how you'd like them. We usually add some extra subtle effects here like salt, splatters, or even colourless water to add a bit more interest. Usually we'll add in a layer or 2 for final touch-ups. This is where we can do things like sharpen up details, add highlights, or basically make sure that everything is looking tight. And finally, a big part of really selling a digital watercolour as the real deal is the paper it's done on. We add one of our own custom paper textures using a linear burn mode for this step, and we've included a bunch of them for free in the Wicked Watercolour pack, so make sure to check out the link below if you're interested. So there you have it. One key point about this simplified workflow is that it can work on an illustration with any level of complexity. It's a simple loop of steps to take to render just about anything. In the next video, we put this theory into practice, so check out our real-time fox watercolour illustration.